All right, thank you so much. First, I want to say thank you to Linda Hall Library and Christina for inviting me to speak. This is a truly awesome series, and I'm so glad that I can contribute to it and hopefully provide some helpful tips and guidance for those who may want to become biologists. For today's talk, I will share on how do I become a biologist. As Christina said, my name is Cindy Lee. I'm currently a research and development scientist in cell biology at MilliporeSigma in Burlington, Massachusetts. It's the greater Boston area. And here you can see my background image is actually an image that I took last year. Here I have some canine kidney cells. And if you can see that all these little blue dots here, those are the nuclei of the cell. I'm really passionate about biology and I'm excited to share. So I wanted to first start off with what is a biologist? If you look up the definition, it says a scientist who a scientist who studies living organisms. But if you think about living organisms and what type of biologists there are so many different iterations. Here I just have a few examples. So you have ecologists who study the environment and the ecosystem, marine biologists who study marine organisms and their ecosystems. You can have a computational biologist who develops and analyzes data using complex algorithms. You can have a microbiologist, those who study bacteria and viruses, or a cellular and molecular biologist. They understand the functions of the cells and the inner working of the molecules like DNA, RNA, and protein. For me, I'm trained as a molecular virologist, where I study viruses in my PhD work, and now I've transitioned to studying cellular biology. To summarize, as you can see, we have a lot of different types of biologists, but to summarize some of what we commonly do is we investigate scientific questions, we develop hypotheses, then we will conduct research on our hypothesis. We'll analyze the data, try to solve, and then communicate and teach our findings. So for today's talk, I'll be delving into my journey of how I became a biologist. This talk was geared towards a wide audience from various educational backgrounds, so I decided to start all the way back from high school and try to provide tips and guidance on what you can do to prepare for a career in biology. Then I'll delve into talking about my undergrad. I have a bachelor's in biology and chemistry. Then I'll talk about how to prepare for higher education. What I mean by higher education is going to graduate school. It can be either a master's or a PhD program. For me, I specifically have a PhD in microbiology. And then after, what can you do with that PhD? And then I'll delve into my current career, which is an R&D scientist in cell biology. I'll try to explain a little bit about what I did to apply to industry, the job interview process, and then my day-to-day as an R&D scientist, and then hopefully leaving ample time for some Q&A. This talk today is based on my experience and my opinions here. First, I wanted to start off with my high school experience. I was interested in law and science. I didn't really have a clear idea of what I wanted to do just yet. I was a first-generation student and from a low-income background, so I did face some hardships of trying to understand how best to pursue college. I was somewhat confused on the requirements for higher education, like applying to college, standardized tests that were required, and the financial aid. So with that, throughout high school, I developed specific tips that could help me and guide me on the path to college. And I wanted to share them here today with you. So first is I really do promote seeking guidance. That means proactively meet with high school counselors, talk with your teachers, and network with professionals. They ultimately can guide you on best ways to prepare for college. Definitely for your academics, I would recommend taking honors, advanced placement, and/or dual placement classes where you can sometimes attend college while in high school. What this does is it provides high-level insight into the courses. It can help define your interest to specifically what type of biology or science you may like. And then it can also help save time and money. I know with some advanced placement classes, if you score a certain level, you can replace those or use those as college credits. So some of the courses that I recommend if you're interested in science and specifically biology might be AP Biology, Chemistry, and Physics. The last tip I have here is balance and fun. Definitely take extracurricular activities, join sports, clubs, and volunteer. Specifically, join clubs like the science club if you're interested in becoming a biologist. What these do is that it teaches you about teamwork, time management, helps you develop those soft skills like communication, and then also it provides fun. Here, the last bit I have is helpful tips for those of you who are in either your junior or senior year. Definitely research about different majors and the colleges. So specific colleges will offer certain types of majors. Make sure that they fit with what you would want to pursue. Understand what are the requirements to apply. And you can also connect with college admission counselors that can help provide that guidance as well. Also, make sure you start learning about in-state versus out-of-state tuition. What are the financial aid that is available, whether they're through grants or loans? And then also look at scholarships, both internally within that college or externally. Try to find scholarships that are provided either by the national level, some are like the NSF, the NIH, the CDC. And then also one thing I like to mention that helped me tremendously is if you are from a low income background, you can apply or ask college admissions office or your high school counselors for waivers for standardized tests like SAT or ACT and help in college applications. So definitely utilize that. That helped me tremendously. And then lastly, research experience. I did not partake in research experience, but I have seen high school students partaking in research experience in labs at the universities. So I'm going to delve in next to my undergraduate experience. So I was an undergraduate from 2010 to 2016 at Florida International University in Miami, Florida. So I have my bachelor's in biology and chemistry. So originally, as I mentioned, I was interested in law and science. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to major in. I entered college or undergrad as a criminal justice major, but then I took a human anatomy class and I remembered why I loved science and biology. So I decided to switch my major to biology. And this is my opinion, but it's never too late to switch your major. Ultimately, this is something that you're going to do long term. So be happy with ultimately what you choose. I wanted to show here what were the core classes and the upper level classes that I took. So those core classes are biology, chemistry, organic chemistry, and cellular and molecular biology. Some of those upper level core classes are virology, genetics, microbiology, embryology, and lab. So this is really where you start, the upper level courses are really where you start to define what are your interests. During my third year, I double majored in chemistry. I started to see that through my biology degree that science was interconnected. We use a lot of chemistry also to answer some key questions in biology. So for me to become, a better multidisciplinary scientist, I decided to double major in chemistry. It was not necessary, but I decided to go that route. And some of the main courses for here were biochemistry, physical chemistry, analytical chemistry, and then my favorite, instrumental analysis, where I learned about key instrumentation like mass spectrometry. So within undergraduate, one thing I do highly recommend is that research experience. It's a must, especially if you want to pursue a career in biology and go to grad school. Volunteer in a research lab at your university. I've heard that the bare minimum for undergraduate experience, through my own experience and when I mentored students in graduate level, was that you need to have dedicated at least 10 hours a week. First, I would suggest you to identify the research you would be interested in. Look up at the university in your university directory, what type of research is going on and what professors are guiding or doing that type of research, and directly contact that professor. Have a one-on-one meeting and ask what type of research is going on in your lab and what would an undergraduate student perform in your lab if they were to join. Start that two-way conversation. And then one thing I suggest is do multiple research experiences. Here, as you can see, I completed 2 experiences because I really wanted to understand which field I wanted to pursue ultimately. Um, for me, I understood through one of the projects that I did in one of the labs that I studied Zika virus, that I knew that I wanted to pursue virology ultimately. So doing multiple research experiences is always a great thing to do. And what are the benefits of those research experiences? You gain hands-on experience and learn new techniques. This will give you a competitive edge. You get to learn critical thinking and problem-solving skills. It's great insight into what graduate students do. Most times when you're an undergraduate researcher, you'll be paired up with a graduate student. And then lastly, it's great scientific communication and networking. As a graduate student, you'll be able, like here, to go to conferences and present on what you are doing with your research. And it's also a great opportunity to network and meet other scientists, talk about their exactly what we do here, talk about those helpful tips and tricks and guidance as well. I wanted to talk also about research experience resources. So there are resources to help you get into a lab and even fund you to be conducting research at the undergraduate level. First, I would suggest apply to as many as you can find and that you fit the criteria for. So you have options. And one thing I would always say is don't be let down if you don't always get them. I can say out of my whole academic career, I've applied to many programs and I've been accepted to a handful, but I've had my fair share of acceptance and rejections. Just remember always to try your best. So here first, you have internal funding from the university. The best way to learn about these is you contact the academic advisor of your college. There are also on the national or regional level, various programs. Here we have the federal TRIO program. So you can see here I've highlighted or bolded Ronald E. McNair Scholars Program and Research Experience. And I have a picture of Ronald E. McNair himself. He was one of the astronauts that was an astronaut in the Challenger mission, who unfortunately passed away. But in his honor, they founded the McNair Scholars Program. He had his PhD in physics. And with this opportunity, what it gives you is that for low income and first generation students who are not sure about how to apply to grad school or what grad school is like, they will provide you a stipend for summer research, and they will provide you sessions on how to apply for graduate school. I was part of this scholars program and I highly recommend it. There are other programs that I've heard from my colleagues, like this National Science Foundation, Research Experience for Undergraduates, or the REU, that are offered. They also provide a stipend for summer research. The CDC also has a list of internships and fellowships as well. And then more local to Kansas, I know that there is the Kansas Idea Network of Biomedical Research Excellence that also provides a stipend and also provides sessions to guide you on how to apply for graduate school. So again, remember, there are resources out there, definitely utilize them. So some recommendations I want to leave off for undergraduate students. Definitely important to maintain a good GPA and select those upper level classes to specialize in a field that will prepare you when you enter a graduate program. Research experience is definitely a must. You gain critical experience in critical thinking, problem solving, technical skills, and it definitely gives you a competitive edge, whether you are applying to an associate research and directly working in industry or planning to go to higher education such as graduate school. Scholarships and awards, apply for as many as you fit the criteria. And these are recognized achievements, so definitely put them in your resume or your CV or your application. Network, definitely during undergraduate, there are tons of career fairs, symposiums, or conferences. Talk with professors. At this stage also, you can create a LinkedIn and connect with professionals. Ask them if you can seek their mentorship and guidance into a specific field or specific career. And then also as optional, sometimes there is student work in the science department, such as undergraduate teaching assistant or laboratory assistant. This just adds more skill to your portfolio if you want to become a biologist. So the next thing I'm going to branch off to is now you have your bachelor's of science in biology. Where can you go from here? There are four general tracks or paths you can go. You can either be an associate scientist where you're ready to work right after your bachelor's degree, and you can either work in an academic or industry setting. It could also be a stepping stone for before you want to enter graduate school. You want to gain new research experience, and you want to see what it's like to work for an academic or an industry lab before making a commitment of graduate school. You can learn new skills or techniques here. As I said, it's a great segue before pursuing master's or PhD. And also here for an associate scientist, you may be able to work up to a certain level of an associate scientist. But if you wanted to work anything, you wanted to pursue a career higher than that, you would definitely need to go back and do a graduate program, either a master's or PhD. The other option is a post-baccalaureate. It's right after your graduate school. It's either 1 to 2 years in a research setting, either academia or industry. It is stipend based, so you do get paid for the research that you do. And it really is for people who might not particularly have the research experience from undergrad, or those who want to develop that research experience more. The best way to learn about post-baccalaureate programs is directly to look at either the university or the industry that offers them. And again, it's a great segue before deciding to pursue a master's or a PhD. Then with graduate school in itself, there are two routes that you can do, a master's or a PhD. With a master's, it's about 2 years in an academic research lab. This is out of pocket, so it's not covered, so please take that into consideration. You do have to, most times with a graduate degree in biology, you will have to do a master's with thesis. So what that means is that you do research and you write a thesis out afterwards and present it. Here's a great way to learn additional skills and techniques before entering industry or a higher level academia career. And it's really more geared for those pursuing, scientific jobs in industry. Lastly is the PhD. I've boxed this and put it in red because this is what I pursued. So this is about 5 years in an academic research lab. It is funded. So your classes are paid for and you are paid a stipend as well for living. Really, you're responsible for leading research projects, and it's an independent scientist role. You're given guidance from a professor, but you're responsible for leading those projects. Ultimately, you'll write papers for publications that will be published in scientific journals. You may have some teaching that is required where you teach undergraduates at that level. And here you really delve in within those 5 years and learn diverse skills and techniques, which I'll talk a little bit about later. At the end of your PhD, you'll write a dissertation, which is a summation of all the research you have done within those 5 years. And really, a PhD is for someone who wants to pursue a high-level science position. You'll start out as a scientist, but then you'll work your way up to either a manager position, a director position, or even a professorship at the academic setting. So here, how to prepare for higher education. So this is the PhD program specifically. So after your undergrad, if you're ready to move directly into a PhD program, first thing I would suggest is information gathering. First, identify which specialized field you like to pursue. And that can be based on research that you're doing online. If you've done a research experience and really enjoyed that research experience, also talking to colleagues or talking to networking with mentors, trying to figure out what you want to pursue as well. Once you've identified what specific field you would like to enter for your PhD program, I would suggest going online to different colleges, seeing what their curriculum looks like. What kind of PhD degree do they offer? So I can give you an example. I attended University of Kansas Molecular Bioscience. I chose that track because you start off first without choosing a specific field. you can, after the first year, you can enter one of three fields based on what you've studied and experienced. So you can either enter biochemistry, microbiology, or cellular and molecular biology. So I really like the option that I didn't have to choose up front. I could choose after my first year, gaining some experience. You want to understand what is the requirements and what are the submission dates. So I know now that some universities, you don't have to take the GRE, some you do. So definitely follow up on that. You might have to write a personal statement. You have to submit your educational records as well. So really look at what key criteria, because from university to university, it's a little different. Look at the submission dates. Make sure that you are on time for the submission dates. And I've always heard, if you are writing personal statements, make sure you always put the correct university that you are applying to. I've seen that some personal statements may have the university just copied and pasted and they send it to the wrong university. So make sure you don't do that. Also understand what the stipend looks like. How much are they covering you for your living expenses? It varies from state to state as well. Also research. What type of research are they doing? Because ultimately in a PhD program, you will have to choose a professor to work under and a specific research to pursue. So reach out to the professors, the graduate students, and the graduate program advisor to understand better what type of research that they do and what type of research you can pursue. Also, another great question, sometimes labs are full, so make sure that you ask the professor, say, hey, I'm interested in your lab, but will you have space if I decide to be a graduate student? So these are some things to think about. And then again, if you're from a low income background, ask either your undergraduate program or the graduate program that you want to apply to if they have admission waivers. I know that when applying to PhD programs, they can be anywhere from $60 up to $100. And if you want to apply to multiple colleges, it can add up. So definitely check if they have that option. The second thing that's very important to prepare for higher education is internal or external support. Yes, you will have a stipend with the university, but it's always great to see what other options there are in terms of support. So one of the ones that I really want to highlight here is the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program. The financial support is about $37,000 per year for 5 years. Go on to the National Science Foundation website and just double check that you meet these key criteria. And again, if you're interested in a specific lab, ask that professor if they have knowledge on applying for these fellowships. The other one is National Institute of Health program. They have training programs that are offered as well. They offer financial support. You get to have extended learning and a research internship. I did one when I was at KU. It was called the Chemical Biology program, where I got to learn about not only biology, but extend my learning into chemistry. And through that program, I was able to do a research internship at Virginia Tech. Then lastly, just internal within the university. So remember, go back to that graduate program advisor and ask, what type of support do you have internally? Whether it's a stipend, a scholarship, or a fellowship program. All right, I wanted to give a very broad overview on what the graduate school experience looks like. For me, I attended graduate school from 2017 to 2022 at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, Kansas. So it's about anywhere from a 5 to 7 year program. On average, it is 5 years. And then I wanted to break it down from years 1 through 5, kind of what is the general focus during those years. So in the first years, you're looking at those core science classes and lab rotations. So you really so this is, again, tailored to the University of Kansas Molecular Bioscience program. So ultimately, you come in with some idea that you want to have a PhD in molecular biosciences, but there are 3 tracks: cellular and molecular biology, microbiology, or biochemistry. So in the first year, you cover those foundational science classes: biochemistry, cell biology, microbiology, and genetics. And then you'll do rotations into 2 to 3 labs. So you'll identify 3 labs that you're interested and do anywhere from a 4 to 6 week rotation. And then at the end of that rotation, you'll decide which lab you would like to join for the next 5 years. For me, I realized that within my first rotation, I wanted to join a specific lab. So I did not complete rotations 2 and 3. So that can also happen as well. Once you're done with your first year, you've completed those foundational classes and finished your lab rotations and identified which lab you would like to join, you go into your second year. This time you also define which track you would want to go into. So for me specifically, I went into the microbiology track. So here you start to take those specialized classes. You start to do focus on your research and define your research projects. And you also are expected to take a qualifying exam. So first, specialized classes that I took for my microbiology degree was microbial genetics, virology, bacterial pathogenesis, and immunology. Usually these are the set core classes that you'll take. But if there are alternative or extra classes that you want to take, you would talk to your mentor or advisor in the graduate program. Here, again, you'll start to continue to make progress on your research projects, and then you'll have to pass a qualifying exam. So this qualifying exam can either be written, it can be a presentational style, or verbal. And this will test you on your knowledge that you've gained over the past 2 years. And also, it might be a test or an exam on what is your research project and where would you want to take your research project? What are the types of experiments you would do? What is the overall conclusion? And how long would it take? So those are some things that they may test you on as well. In your third year, you continue some of your specialized classes, but you start to understand better what is your research project, and you focus on making progress towards that. Also at this stage, I would also recommend sometimes for students to take more than one project, work on multiple projects, because sometimes if one doesn't work out, you still have either a second or third project that will pan out and that you can write your dissertation on. In your fourth year, you really focus on your research and publication writing. You don't have any more classes, so this is really the time to focus on that research, make progress towards it. And also publication writing. You're starting to get together your introduction, your data, to hopefully publish your findings in a scientific journal. And then lastly, your fifth year, you're working on your research, dissertation writing, publication, and a defense. You will have to defend your research that you've completed with your committee, and also make sure that you publish your research in scientific journals. So I just wanted to give a very quick overview on graduate school experience. So this was my graduate school research. I specifically worked on herpes simplex 1 virus. It's a lifelong virus, so if you know about it, it's commonly called the cold sore virus because these viral particles most times affect the lip. Once it has affected the lip, these viral particles will travel up into a specific site in your brain in the neurons and stay latent. And then upon some type of stress, reactivate and come back out. What I primarily focused on was identifying potential inhibitors against HSV1. We wanted to design an efficient and creative experiment that would allow us to quickly narrow down potential compounds that could be potential drugs to inhibit HSV1 replication. So you can see I started with 20,000 compounds and we got down to about 70 compounds. And then you can see here, what does that kind of research look like visually? So here I have cells with HSV1 infection, and you can see that the cells aren't so happy, that they're rounded, and actually with some immunofluorescence staining, you can see here, these green dots, that's actually a viral protein. But then when I add one of these inhibitors that I found in my study, you can see that the cells are healthy, there's no rounding up, and there's no expression of this viral protein. So that indicates to us that there's no viral replication. So this is just a very brief overview of my research that I did over the 5 years. So just wanted to highlight here some recommendation and benefits of graduate school or obtaining your PhD. First is that specialized knowledge that you gain and gained experience. So you become an expert in your field with the ability to lead your project independently. You have experience with experimental design and optimization, resolving technical challenges that, those are obstacles that come up during your projects. You know how to analyze data, and you know a slew of scientific techniques. You also have skillful management and organizational skills that you've gained over the time of graduate school and your PhD. You have the ability to lead that project independently or in a team environment, maybe a collaboration. And you have time management and multitasking skills. You're going to make sure that you focus on excelling with those soft skills that includes leadership, collaborative teamwork, communication, and sometimes teaching when you teach undergraduate courses or labs. And then lastly, my recommendation is start to build that large professional network. When you go to conferences, when you meet new professors, new students, connect and collaborate with other biologists and scientists. Use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great platform to connect with people. And also I want to mention, as you graduate from your PhD, these are all key skills to highlight, especially in your resume or CV when you apply to industry. So again, why obtain a PhD? It really allows you to have access to so many opportunities. And what do those opportunities look like? Ultimately, whenever you talk to some students, you think a PhD degree, there are two paths, either academia or industry. With academia, it's mainly in a university setting. You will probably, after a PhD, have to go to do a postdoctoral research. You really are continuing learning techniques and gaining skills and knowledge. Ultimately, what the career is that you'll either be a professor at a university or a primary investigator that leads a lab and teaches. For industry, you can either go to a small or large company after your PhD. They do have postdocs as well. Or you can directly go to be a scientist or senior scientist. Specifically for me, I develop scientific products, or some other examples are you can directly work on drug development or in a clinical setting. Really, after your PhD, if you go to industry, ultimately the career path would be that you would be a manager or a director. But I want to say that there are so many other potential paths with a PhD. And I've just labeled here some examples. You can be a scientific patent officer. You can be a writer for scientific journals. You can work for the government, scientific review officers. You can do regulatory. And there are so many more out there. So definitely go online, see what you can do with a PhD, connect with people on LinkedIn who have PhDs and have gone, maybe a different route as well. I specifically chose to go to the route of industry. So I just have recommendations on applying to industry and interviews. So first, when going into an industry, there are so many small and large companies. I would say identify what career you'd like to pursue. These are some key critical questions to answer for yourself. What do you like to do? What would you like to learn? Are you willing to relocate? Where do you see yourself in 2 to 5 years? And will that job that you're applying to get you there? I would say apply about 3 months before you graduate. Tailor your cover letter and resume to each industry submission. That's very, very important. I have added exclamation points to highlight that. Use keywords from the job description in your resume. Know about the objective and vision of the company when you're applying so that you can tailor and personalize that cover letter. Research on the products or research that they do. And then remember to highlight really what you can bring to the company and the position as well. There are also scientific recruiters and connections that can help you along the way, so definitely utilize them. Just quickly looking into what does that interview process look like? And this is my personal experience. So it can take anywhere from 1 to 3 months. So that's why I say apply 3 months in advance before you graduate. So first, you have the first round is with human resources, a talent acquisition manager. You just talk with them briefly to understand your background, and it's really to identify if you're a good fit or a good candidate for the job. And they may ask some expectations like salary or work schedule. The second round is with the hiring manager. So most likely the manager that will be directing you if you do accept the career will be, you'll have an in-depth discussion about your background and your future goals, the job, and you'll get to understand the team better as well. And then the third round is that you'll meet with the hiring manager and the team that you'll be working with. For me specifically, I had to present my PhD research, and then I met with each member of the team. And really, this is where it's a two-way conversation. So be prepared to ask questions as well, such as, how do you like your work? What are you working on? Um, and, if I was going to join the company, what projects or products would I be working on? Would be some other questions as well. So really briefly here, I am a research and development scientist in cell biology. What does that mean? I work for MilliporeSigma. It's a leading provider for life science products. Our vision is to innovate products, services, and offerings to help the important science advance. My job title is an R&D scientist in cell biology, and my ultimate question or goal in my job is what tools and technology can I provide the scientific community to help create solutions? So this job is where I bring my technical and expertise, my technical skills and expertise to try to answer this goal. And to achieve this goal, I generally work with these steps here to bring a scientific product to the market for cell biology and to help the scientific community and our customers. So I'll explore and evaluate new technologies and tools. I'll conceptualize and design. I'll work with a team of designers and engineers. I'll experiment and validate before bringing this potential product to the market. Once I've validated it and see that everything works well, I'll bring the product to the scientific community, and I'll continuously support this product either with customer questions or technical questions as well. Just some example here on products that I support. We have a cell ASIC Onyx, which is a microfluidic live cell imager. And you can see here through this video that these were cells growing in real time, and you can see the cells splitting. These cells are labeled with the GFP fluorescent probe. Here is another product that I've supported, is the MilliCell hanging insert. This is a plastic housing that has a membrane on the bottom, and you can add your cells into the top of this membrane, and it allows cells to grow and access nutrients both ways. And then also something newer that I've been working on are 3D cells. Rather than traditionally 2D cells that are plated onto a plastic plate, we have now these 3D organoids that are considered miniaturized organoids. They have similar architecture and are more physiological relevant model for cell biology and science. And one thing with this R&D job is that I'm always continuously learning about new products, learning about new technology and tools. And I think that's what is most exciting about my job. And then my day-to-day work as an R&D scientist, it's pretty flexible, and it really depends on the projects and stages that these projects are in. But here are some general outline of what are tasks that I do in my day-to-day. And it's usually a mix of these tasks as well. So I'll be in lab, cell culture lab, working on performing cell culture and experiments. I'll analyze samples, I'll collect data. I'll make sure that I do proper documentation, which includes completing my lab notebook, writing reports or technical articles. I'll have a lot of meetings communicating to a cross-functional team, manufacturers, or my team and my manager. I do have often presentations where I present and share my research. I continuously research. I try to stay up to date on scientific literature and the current research that's going on around us. And then lastly, throughout the year, I'll be able to attend conferences, and this is really helpful for me to discover and learn about ongoing research in the scientific community. This is the last slide here. I wanted to end on this. Why I love being a biologist. Really, for someone to be a biologist, you really have to have that passion and be inspired by science. And here I wrote, I'm truly inspired. It's really truly my passion I'm inspired by its science and its impact. You know, here are some, what I bolded are some key characteristics of scientists and biologists. You know, they're always curious, they're always asking questions. They're really excited for new technology and innovating. You know, for me personally, I love working on new projects. Uh, and sometimes when you have these obstacles, you can challenge yourself and you can think outside the box to try to answer these questions. You can connect all the info. I love connecting information and data together to see the bigger picture or solve and have solutions. And one of the bigger things is communicating, communicating with the scientific community. And then lastly, recognizing the beauty of science, especially treating and preventing diseases. So with that, I hope that in this presentation, you've learned helpful tips and guidance on, navigating to become a biologist, and you've gained some insight on what an R&D scientist does. I have here my QR code for LinkedIn. If you'd like to connect and find out some more information, just shoot me a quick email saying, I attended this seminar and I'd like to know more information about being a biologist. And at this time, I'll take any questions. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Cindy, for the awesome presentation. And as a reminder, if anyone has any questions, put it in the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. And again, if you're watching on Facebook, type it in the comments section. I really did like how you mentioned the importance of mentorship and especially looking deeply into scholarships and financial support, especially waivers. Those are really important to remember that those are available. And I just wanted to start off with, you said research experience is a must. When does that take place? How early can you start looking for those volunteer opportunities?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was an undergraduate student, I saw a high school student in the lab as well. So you can start as early as a junior or senior in high school, barring that the university or the professor will let you do research in the lab. If not, the best time to start research experience, I would say, is in your freshman or sophomore year of college. You want to provide yourself ample time to do multiple research experiences or be able to take one research project and develop it for, a few years. So that's kind of the explanation of why I say, start in that freshman or sophomore year of undergraduate.
Yeah, I think as early as you can get that experience, that makes sense. And Cindy, do you think you could stop sharing screen so that
Yeah,
we could get a little bit closer?
yeah, definitely. Here we go.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, and so would you characterize this field as highly competitive? Would you say it is?
Yeah, so recently I know biotechnology and sciences have been hard. So in terms of industry, yes, it's very competitive to get follow the path of science right now and get a job in biology. Um, was that always the case? Not very much. I mean, most of my colleagues and me that have been able to graduate with a PhD have been relatively easy to obtain a job after graduate school. So um, I think given the time, it is competitive, but ultimately having a PhD and that research experience gives you the competitive edge to apply for some of these jobs and, to be a biologist.
I see. And on the topic of the PhD route, outside of that field, are those types of published papers expected, or is that specifically geared for the PhD route?
That's always a great question. So when we go through a PhD program, always the expectation is that you will publish a paper, whether you go to academia or you go to industry. One thing I can say is that if you choose the route to go to academia, let's say you want to ultimately be a professor, yes, publications are a requirement, and the more that you have, it's always the better. For industry, it's not necessarily the case. It's great that you have a publication, but it's not necessary. But I will say that having a publication also gives you the competitive edge. And the reason why to that is because it shows that you've been able to take a project starting from, the concept or that hypotheses, and then being able to take it all the way through and answer that question through multiple scientific experiments and data analysis. So it really shows the depth and breadth of what you've learned through your PhD.
I see. Yeah, it'll definitely make you stand out from any of the competition, I'm sure. So we've got a question asking, as a biologist, how do you keep yourself current with the field of expertise? So how do you mentioned staying up to date with all of the research. How do you do that? Any tips?
Yeah. So I often follow, really well-known journals like Science, Nature. Also, if there's a specific field that you like, you can always subscribe to specific topics that you'll get emails to. Um, and also the other way to always stay connected is talk to colleagues. Like, we often share papers that we come across, and science is so vast. There's always, advancements. So it is really hard to stay up to date. But attending those conferences, making sure you're getting out there is one of the best ways. I like to go to a lot of networking events as well that are in the Boston area. And I get to hear about a lot of the science that researchers are doing. So that's a really great way for me to stay up to date as well.
Wonderful. And you kind of walked through your day a little bit. What would you say the split is between like working solo and then having teamwork? Like, is there a real characteristic split there?
Yeah, it's really dependent on the projects and the project types you get. I had one project where I had to work in a cross-functional team, and that was throughout the year. So we had a concept or a design that we had to bring this product to the market at the end. So that was really a year-long project. In terms of how much my time I dedicated to it, it was split because the engineer would work first on it. And then when it came time for the scientist or the application lead, as we call it, to work on it, you had to have a some substantial amount of time dedicated towards it. Um, in terms of cross-functional teams. More for when I'm in the lab and I'm doing my own research, that's more independent work. And maybe, I would want to say that's probably 30% of my time. Cross-functional team is probably 60% of my time, and that last 10% is doing documentation or updating my lab notebook, conferences, some of those other miscellaneous tasks.
I see. And is all of that in person? Is it ever a hybrid work or remote work for you?
Yeah, so I will say one thing about if you are a bench scientist or a lab scientist, it's really you are dedicated to be in the lab. So I do most times come 5 days a week. If you're a cell biologist, we have this joke. The cells are the babies that we have to take care in the lab. They're really finicky. So we have to come 5 days a week to check under the microscope to make sure that the cells are doing well. There are some types of scientists, like computational biologists, that work completely remote. They'll come maybe a hybrid as well. So it depends on the type of science you do and the type of scientist you are. But for me personally, as a cell biologist, I do come 5 days a week.
Interesting. And so we've got kind of a question comment. You're a really great speaker. Did you take any speech classes? And you spoke a lot about the importance of networking and kind of putting yourself out there. Is there any tips for people to become a better speaker or a better communicator?
Yeah, I really appreciate that comment. Thank you so much. In terms of speaking, I actually really am an introvert. But how I developed my speaking skills was through graduate school. You're really you really have to talk about your science. You have to communicate, and you get to learn how to communicate with different types of people as well. So I would say in graduate school that's the time that you blossom into being a better speaker. Because you are put in so many different situations where you have to speak about your science and speak to different people, whether it's undergraduates, colleagues, collaborators, or your PI or mentor. In terms of speech classes, I would definitely would say take a speech class if they offer it. It never help. It doesn't hurt to take one. The other kind of external classes that I took to help me develop speaking was leadership. I learned how to approach situations, especially difficult conversations, and what are some kind of ways or tips or tricks to prepare myself speaking. So that was really helpful for me. And then last thing I want to mention on the speech, it's I would always say you're the expert in what you're speaking about, so be confident, and it's okay to say I don't know sometimes. I think sometimes we get nervous because we don't know all the answers, and that's okay. You say I don't know, I'll get back to you. That's a great question. So yeah, be confident. That would be my piece of advice.
Yeah, there's really no way to avoid it. You just got to throw yourself into the gauntlet and just pick it up along the way.
Right.
Um, so this one seems a little bit more open-ended. How does or how did learning biology change the way you see yourself, if it has at all?
Yeah. Learning change. Yeah. So I think that speaks to kind of like about the speech and being an introvert. So oftentimes what scientists are looked at are they're introverts. They like to work on the bench, um, they like to just to focus on their experiments. But honestly, becoming a biologist and doing the graduate program, I've really had to, expand my knowledge. So learning different fields, so immunology, microbiology, cell biology. So expanding that knowledge set and expertise. And then on the other side, how it's changed me is the way that I think when I said, we're always curious, we always ask questions, at the beginning stages of when I was a scientist, I would stay kind of quiet, because I didn't know much. But now that I've learned a lot in biology, I'm always asking questions, and kind of pushing the boundaries and challenging myself. So that's one way I would say it's kind of changed me in a way.
Interesting. And you mentioned your path was changed at some point. Your interest kind of shifted. What exactly was it that drew you to the field, even though there was so many other options?
Yeah. So initially, yeah, I was interested in law, but science opens up so much to the world, and you can answer a lot of questions with science. And I just absolutely love that. And I love doing experiments. So that's kind of one of the things that shifted me um, towards or gravitated me towards science. I think the other reason why it's a personal reason is that, uh, you know, um, my brother had a genetic disease when he was born, and it was not fully understood. So I wanted to to pursue science, to continue to pursue science and change my track because I wanted to better understand the genetic disease that he had, what type of research there was, what medications or treatments that there were as well. So it was more for me as well to have more knowledge how to approach answering some of these questions that I had in my personal life.
Oh, that's very, very interesting. Wow. So, what would you say is maybe the most challenging aspect of being a biologist? And then to kind of even that out, what's the best part?
Yeah, I would say the most challenging definitely is having a scientific question and deciding how you're going to answer that. And is it the best way to answer that? We do graduate school for 5 years because sometimes it takes that long to answer one scientific question. I would say that's the hardest. And there are a lot of ups and downs. Sometimes experiments work, sometimes they don't. And you have to be a critical thinker to overcome that challenge and resolve those issues, technical issues. Um, so that's the hard part. But the part that I most enjoy is when they do work and you find the answer, you find the solution on the other side. It may take 5 years, but that's where you never lose hope. And, at the end, it's always worth it. And I think the other part of science is that you contribute something to the society. I work in product development, but I'm contributing ultimately a product that would help the scientific community. Those scientists that do research on diseases and cancer, they're providing something to the community, and I think that's so fruitful. And maybe I feel like that's probably something that a lot of scientists, find rewarding.
So it sounds like a lot of patience and tenacity is certainly needed or encouraged in this
Yes,
field.
100% perseverance, as you said, tenacity, dedication, definitely.
Awesome. And since we're coming up on the hour, why don't we make this our last question? What what was the most exciting project that you've been able to work on?
Yeah, so I guess I would say graduate school because it was the longest that I've worked on. So learning about the disease herpes simplex virus, and I didn't know that it's a lifelong infection, that it goes into the neurons, that it's hard to treat because, you know, neurons don't replicate. So those cells will die if you know, ultimately treat with a very toxic compound. So there hasn't been really any medication around that. So the most exciting research I did was, finding a creative and efficient way to screen multiple compounds to try to find potential inhibitors. And I would want to say that's the most exciting because it's a project that, you started with the scientific question all the way and you designed that experiment. And then ultimately at the end, in my publication, I found three potential inhibitors that can reduce HSV1 infection. So I probably would say that was the most rewarding. But also here where I work, being able to see some of these products launch and scientists use them, and I get to talk to the scientists about them, that's also, really rewarding as well.
That is amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Lee, for taking the time to speak with me. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. For more information about all of our upcoming programs and events, visit lindahall.org, where I also encourage you to sign up for our e-newsletter. And for the parents and teachers who tuned in today, I hope you consider supporting the library through the Linda Hall Library Foundation. Your contributions make all of these programs possible and freely available. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.